Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are diving into something that, well, I think holds so many of us back, that really persistent, sometimes crippling fear of failure.
Oh, absolutely. And it truly can feel like it's holding you hostage, can it? That
Yeah.
fear. It doesn't just whisper doubt. Sometimes it feels like it's screaming them.
Yeah, making simple steps feel huge.
Totally. We watched this really fantastic Awaken Your Potential video recently
Mm.
that just unpacks this whole fear thing. And it offers some incredibly powerful ways to, move past it.
Okay.
So our mission today, let's pull out the key insights from that video, the real nuggets,
Yeah.
to help you understand how to loosen that grip fear might have on you.
Okay, let's unpack this then. One of the first things the video jumps into is asking us pretty directly, are we letting fear win?
Hmm.
Calling it this, like, incredibly heavy burden. And it makes such a striking point early on. This intense fear of failure, the kind that just paralyzes you, it often actually is a symptom of caring too much, but about the wrong things. It introduces this concept they call the over-caring trap. What jumped out at you about that?
Well, what's fascinating there is just how counterintuitive it feels at first.
Yeah.
We're always told passion, desire, that's everything, right?
I drive.
Exactly. But this video explains there's this, tipping point. Healthy desire can kind of morph into this desperate neediness, an obsessive focus on one specific outcome.
Ah, okay.
And that obsession, it gives that outcome huge power over you right now, over your actions, your emotions. They put it really well.
Yeah.
It makes you start playing not to win, but just, not to lose.
Oof, yeah. And I love how they tied that over-caring straight into crippling perfectionism.
Oh, yeah, that was key.
That belief that everything has to be absolutely flawless. They show how this leads to endless research, planning, tweaking, but ultimately just hesitation.
Right.
It's like striving for this impossible ideal is really just fear wearing a clever disguise. It tells you you're being thorough, diligent, when you're actually just stuck in prep mode, not making any real progress.
Which just begs the question, why do we avoid the very actions that would lead to growth?
Yeah.
And yeah, success too, but making mistakes is part of that.
Totally.
Why avoid all that just because we're so terrified of getting something wrong? The video really argues that mindset just closes you off completely. It's like, it's time to loosen that death grip.
So what's the antidote? What does the video suggest for that overthinking paralysis?
It's surprisingly simple. One word, act.
Act.
Yeah. Choose action over perfection. Just start.
Yeah.
Even if it's small, even if it feels imperfect, they really stress closing that gap between the idea and the action quickly.
Okay, so don't get bogged down in the what ifs.
Exactly. They are so clear in this in the video. Don't wait until you feel perfectly ready, because perfection, it isn't real. It's an illusion. The second you start moving, take that imperfect step, you totally shift the dynamic. You literally take power away from the fear and give it back to yourself.
I like that, shifting the power.
Yeah, and one small step makes the next one easier. Plus, you learn from actual real-world experience, not just planning inside your head. Mistakes. The video calls them invaluable lessons.
Right. Not failures, lessons.
Precisely. Confidence isn't built by, avoiding challenges. It's built by facing them head-on and figuring things out, adapting.
Okay, this is where, for me, it got really interesting. The video brings up this, strange paradox.
Yeah.
The more desperately you need something to happen, the more it seems to just slip away.
Yes. Neediness repels.
Right. And detachment attracts that palpable energy of desperation. It can actually push people and even opportunities away from you.
And if you think about that bigger picture, this applies everywhere, doesn't it?
Seems like it.
Think about job interviews. If you seem desperate, it can read as less confident. Or relationships, desperately seeking validation. It can come across as clingy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The video points out people are generally drawn to confidence, to people who have this inner sense of security that isn't just hanging on external validation.
Yeah.
And they clarify, this isn't about being cold or aloof.
Right, not uncaring.
No, it's about having genuine inner strength.
And this leads into understanding what they call the law of detachment, which sounds kind of grand, maybe a bit abstract.
It does, yeah.
But they make it sound super practical.
Yeah.
It's basically put in your absolute best effort. Do the work, prepare, strive hard.
The input part.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then consciously detach from the specific outcome, let go of that obsessive worry about exactly how it's going to happen or when.
And what's great there is how they stress, it's not about being careless.
Yeah.
It's not like you stop caring about your goals.
Okay.
It's about freeing yourself from that emotional roller coaster,
Yeah.
and the paralyzing fear that comes with being super attached to one specific result. They use such a wonderful analogy.
Oh, yeah.
Planting a seed.
Yeah.
You do your part, right?
Yeah.
Prepare the soil, plant it, water it, make sure it gets sun.
Uh-huh. All the right actions.
All the right actions.
Wow.
But you don't dig it up every single day to check if it's sprouting yet.
Yeah.
You trust the process. You detach from needing that immediate, visible result because you know you've done your part.
That's a great visual. And the video also brings in real stories, right? To kind of ground these ideas.
It does. The speaker shares their own journey, actually calls themselves a recovering perfectionist.
Huh. I think many of us can relate to that.
Totally. And they said embracing imperfection was the single most powerful shift they made. It was the key to overcoming procrastination and that fear. They realized waiting for perfect wasn't really about high standards.
What was it about then?
It was just an excuse, really. An excuse to stay hidden in their comfort zone, which, ironically, they admitted wasn't actually comfortable at all. It was stressful.
The uncomfortable comfort zone.
Exactly. They walk us through how the key was just starting, even with, like, shaky hands and a pounding heart. They mentioned launching their YouTube channel using just a phone at first. Early videos, far from polished. But the message, the core idea was there.
And that was enough to begin.
That was everything. By starting, they learned, they got feedback, they improved. If they'd waited for, professional gear and perfect scripts, they might still be waiting.
Good point.
That imperfect start was the catalyst.
Yeah.
They really hammer home that idea. Done is so much better than perfect.
Done is better than perfect. I like that.
And they said the same thing applied when they started their first business. Just an idea and a willingness to figure things out as they went, mistakes and all.
And this really highlights another powerful point they made in the video about looking beyond just the finish line. We get so fixated on the goal, right? Achieving the thing. But we often forget something way more valuable.
The journey itself.
The journey, yeah. And maybe even more importantly, who you actually become along the way.
Yes. The video argues so compellingly that the real transformation, the deep stuff, comes from the process, the striving, the learning, overcoming obstacles, discovering your own resilience, stuff you didn't even know you had in you.
That makes sense.
Fear just blinds us to that truth. It makes us see only the risk of, not reaching the destination. We miss the richness, the learning in the actual travel.
So embracing imperfect action isn't just about getting things done.
No, it's actively engaging in your own personal growth. Every challenge, every mistake, it's shaping you.
Okay, but this brings up a big one for me, and I bet for a lot of listeners. What about judgment? A huge piece of fearing failure is actually fearing what other people will think or say if it doesn't work out.
Oh, absolutely. Huge piece. The video calls this out directly. We waste so much precious time, so much energy worrying about these imagined critics.
Right. Often people whose opinions maybe don't even matter that much to us anyway.
Exactly. Or people we don't even know. This fear of external judgment is incredibly stifling. It makes us live smaller lives, dim our own light, just trying to avoid potential criticism or, God forbid, ridicule.
But they offer such empowering advice here about reclaiming your power.
They do.
The truth is, they say, most people are way too wrapped up in their own lives, their own stuff, their own insecurity.
They're not watching your every move.
Not nearly as much as we think. And those few who do criticize negatively, often that says way more about their own fears, their own limitations, than it does about you or your attempt.
So true.
So why on earth would you let someone else's negativity, their small thinking, dictate the course of your life? You only get one. Live it on your terms.
It really connects, Becca. The video kind of concludes that dialing down the power of fear, it really lies in trusting yourself deeply and trusting the process you're in.
Okay. Trust yourself, trust the process.
Yeah. Understanding that, look, the world isn't going to end if things don't go exactly as you plan them. Sometimes, actually, those detours, those unexpected turns, they lead to amazing discoveries, opportunities you couldn't have even imagined.
So when you operate from that place of self-trust, the video explains you know you have the resilience. You know you have the resourcefulness, the strength to handle whatever comes. You become adaptable, not brittle.
Flexible.
Yeah. It all comes back to choosing to live life on your own terms, defining success for you, not by someone else's old rule book or their expectations.
And their final point is, I think, incredibly powerful. They say, look, when you choose to give your best effort, when you show up authentically as yourself, and crucially, when you take action, despite the fear, Despite the voice saying don't do it,
Yeah.
you've already won.
An internal victory.
Exactly. A profound internal victory. You chose courage over comfort.
Yeah.
You honored your own desires by acting on them. You engaged with life instead of hiding. And that quiet, deeply earned confidence, that's way more significant than any external pat on the back you might get.
Wow. Okay, so bringing this all together, this deep dive into the insights from that Awaken Your Potential video on, like, deleting the fear of failure,
Yeah.
it really gives us a clear framework.
It does. A pathway.
Understand that overcaring trap, how it connects to perfectionism. Choose action over waiting for perfect. Embrace detachment effort, yes, but let go of the specific outcome. Value the journey, value your growth. Silence those external critics by owning your power, and ultimately build that unshakable self-trust.
It's a really compelling way to look at it. It reminds us that facing fear isn't about making fear vanish completely. Probably not possible.
Right.
It's about how you choose to respond to it and trusting that, yeah, you've got what it takes to navigate whatever happens.
The video leaves us with such a simple but really thought-provoking question at the end. What's your next step? And it strongly nudges you. That next step probably shouldn't be another day lost to just overthinking it.
A powerful reminder for all of us, I think, as we move forward. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.